first off, I will do the intro and talk a little bit about you. But now that I have you here,
Hmm.
hi.
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 Can you tell me a little bit about your path from being a writer, and are you TV or film?
Both.
Both. Can you talk a little bit about that? I want to hear.
Absolutely. Yeah. I, so essentially, like, my background has been in storytelling pretty much forever, right? I went to NYU, created my own major there, felt really fancy about it. It was called dramatic storytelling. And then I went to graduate school at USC,
Mhm.
focused on producing, and kind of knew probably around my senior year of high school, because I went to an arts high school, that like visual storytelling was where it was at for me. And I
Mhm.
didn't know if that meant like I was going to move into animation, or I was going to, because I was a visual artist. That landed me in screenwriting and producing, and I was fascinated by the storytelling industry and storytelling as a business. And so I have always sort of been, with one foot in like the art side and one foot in the commerce side, and really curious about that, right? Like, one of my first internships in college was in a post-production accounting firm. And so I was like, where does all the
Oh,
money go when you make a movie? I want to follow the trail and find out all the money pieces.
yeah.
So my fascination with that has always been, in the realm of both things, in the realm of like, what are we creating that is like the best thing that it can be, that tells the best story, and like, what is the actual business of that? And so my degree in producing at SC really kind of landed me in that space of like the business of content as a concept.
Mhm.
And it wasn't until I launched, we're calling it a launch, I had made my first feature film independently with my co-producer and co-director, um, that I kind of was starting to investigate the world of digital marketing, because so much had changed in the land of features, right? So my background has primarily been in feature films. That was like more what I was interested in, obsessed with. That scope of story was what was fascinating to me. And we produced this film, made it, and released it digitally. And that was sort of when I was getting into the space of like looking at digital marketing, thinking about digital marketing, and really asking myself as a creative, because at the time I had been supporting myself primarily as a bartender.
Mhm.
And I was like, where's the space in which I am like receiving money as a creative and still having capacity to do the work that is original, or that I feel guided to do? And that's sort of where that turning point happened for me, where I decided that I was going to create my own business, and what that was going to look like, and how I wanted to support myself and serve. And that's sort of where that access point happened for me.
Mhm. That's really great. I think this separates you from the people that are side hustlers,
Hmm.
which is so valid. It's something that I'm doing as well, and just finding different sources of revenue. But what I think is really appealing is how you are looking at both commerce and creative,
Hmm.
and that's something that you cover really well in your podcast, Creatives Making Money. And there's not many out there that talk about this. And I think this is why I really wanted to hear what you have to say about that. So, can you tell me a little bit about when, like, the genesis behind Creatives Making Money? Did you have other than the premise?
Hmm.
Um, were there topics that you wanted to hit that you didn't see that were being talked about out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was important to me to talk about. I think that the big piece that I find most fascinated by, and that feels most important to me, and I kind of, it was in like 2017, I think early 2017 or early 2016, that I like had the download for the podcast, and like felt that like guided to it. And I didn't launch it until 2018, to my best recollection. But the thing that fascinates me about it the most, like, yes, I want to talk about starving artist syndrome. And yes, I want to talk about this belief that we have to suffer for our art. And yes, I want to talk about the question of like, what is considered to be valuable in the world, and how art just isn't, it's not like, it doesn't necessarily push capitalism forward in the same way that other types of businesses and services do. And we've been societally trained to not value creativity, right? It's just like not something that we look at and say, oh, that's like a valuable skill that should be commodified. And as we sort of move into the space of like valuing our work and finding a way to value our work, and also the piece around self-value, which is like, because your work is personal, then do you attach it to self? Then does it become something where if someone doesn't value your work, do you then you take it personally and you make it about you, because there isn't this distinction you can have between your work and you, right? So there's these pieces around self-worth, self-value, starving artist syndrome that are really interesting to me, um, because they're all constructs, in some way. The way we hold ourselves as creatives is a there's a pre-built construct around it. So that's interesting to me. And then on the other side of it, I just, something that I was always asking myself, because I worked as a writer's assistant in television, and now I'm more interested in television than I ever have been before creatively, and I'm interested in staffing, and I'm interested in writing for TV. But at the time, I said no to that path also, because I had this recognition that, to some extent, there's always going to be other creative work you want to do that, like, you haven't pitched, you haven't sold, no one's bought yet. Like, there's always more, and there's always like the creative spark that lives in us, the desire to create original work, or something that we feel inspired or guided to create or put time and energy into. It creates a constant tension point for any creative, where no matter what job you have or
Yeah.
what is providing revenue to you, there's always another thing. There's always more, right? There's always like other projects or ideas or things that want your attention and life force. And so we kind of have to learn how to hold the identity of that, without shrinking ourselves as a creative. And so what does it really take to hold, um, the fullness of your creativity, and acknowledge that not everything you put your life force into is going to be revenue producing, right? And so, like,
Yeah.
how do you allow for that and not necessarily need to commodify all parts of you or all parts of your creativity, but at the same time honor all of them, right? And like
Yeah.
give them space in your life. And so I think that having one foot in all of these pieces, not judging yourself through the lens of capitalism, right? Like, what does it look like to like love all of those parts of yourself and give all of them space and time in your life, right? To the point that it's reasonable. So those are sort of the topics that I'm that I'm always exploring and like unthreading from different angles.
Yeah. Um, Two things about that. One is I want you to go on a little bit more about the self-worth, and there is in some of your information that connection between pricing your work, your courses, and the connection to self-worth. And the other is, are you saying that by now pursuing TV and staffing and writing scripts, that it's taking you away from other pursuits that may not be as profitable? I just we'll do that one first. Um, are you talking about that you do want to have your hands in a lot of different things and not worry about what that revenue is going to look like, and by pursuing TV that would sort of take more time and energy?
I'm merely I'm what I'm offering is that, like, and this is also based on my experience with all of the projects that I've like taken on and the ones that have paid and not paid. I think it's
Mhm.
really easy to love something, and then the minute it becomes a job, it feels different.
Oh, yes.
And so,
Okay.
and sometimes that can be a paid job, and sometimes it can be an unpaid job, and sometimes it can be, and I think that there's a texture around the responsibility associated with something,
Mhm.
that like can shift how it feels to you. It starts to feel like a responsibility and a duty, and less like playtime, right?
Right.
And so we can attach that to whether there's revenue coming or not. I think sometimes when there is revenue coming through it,
Mhm.
um we make it a job. But you can do something that you have responsibility to other people that's not a job. You can decide you're going to produce a short film and
Mhm.
decide you're collaborating with someone, and there's a team and there's a schedule and there's a this, and like no one's making any money off of it. It's just a thing you're doing.
Right.
And that can start to feel like a job, and it can lose the texture. If you allow for that, it can lose the texture it had when it was just like a spark of an idea or something you were passionate about. And so I don't, like, my answer to the question you're asking is like, no, that's not what I'm expressing or saying.
Mhm.
um what I'm merely just sharing transparently that, like, in the season I am in, I'm interested in that in a way that I haven't been before. But I also acknowledge and understand that like there isn't one job or thing that like will then satisfy. It's not like there's a creative hunger that in some ways is never really satisfied. It's just being a creative is having endless creative hunger, right?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, that's very self-actualized.
Mhm.
When I was starting out, I was singularly focused on this is the one job that I want to have. I want to be a sitcom writer. And when I would speak to students, I would say you have to immerse yourself in that one idea. I think that's kind of an out of date way of looking at it. Um, it worked for me, but that was many years ago. And I think this is sort of, you're sort of giving permission for people to try different things and not attach the meaning of them to what the revenue would possibly be.
Yeah, I think there's a like being multidimensional and multi-hyphenate is like to some extent I think necessary
Yeah.
in the season that we're in right now. And so I think there's a lot of shame that can come with that like is unhelpful. Right? It's like the unhelpful, like, well, if you were successful at this then you wouldn't have to do this, or if this, like, if you were good and you owned this identity then you wouldn't have to, et cetera, right? And there's just a truth and a reality that, like, whether it's financially motivated, which is
Yeah.
like not something to be ashamed of, or whether it's just your creative hunger that's driving you in a different direction, which is also not something to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
I think that it can be really challenging to allow yourself to hold the multitude of identities and the
Mhm.
multidimensionality of your own like creative hunger and
Yeah.
desire, right? Like what wants to be expressed. Like there's no real rules,
Yes.
right?
Well, yeah, that's right. By the way, this is so much more than I had hoped for. um, this is that's fascinating because one of the things that I talk about is like how to lose that ego,
Mhm.
and I think maybe it's a generational thing. Like I identify, like when you identify yourself as an artist or a writer, I my specificity in that really cut off all these other things that I had wanted to pursue and thought, no, then I wouldn't be taking it as seriously. And so this is fascinating. Can we go back to the idea of pricing self-worth,
Yes.
and which I love?
Yeah. So there are so many different ways to approach pricing, right? And I think, like, I don't believe you can price your worth. Like you can't charge what you're worth. There's a big like, oh my God, charge what you're worth. And like you can't, you're a human being. You can like there you can't commodify your value as a human being.
Yeah.
But I think that there's this funny thing that happens where we attach our value to the money that we're making, or our value to, or like we kind of play these like, how loved I am is how much someone's willing to pay me. Like these, like, there's these subconscious games we're playing. Like a lot of those dynamics, interestingly enough, show up in service-based businesses where they're playing out family dynamics around the energetic of money, which is that's a kind of a
Yeah.
piece of this topic that I, in reality, I've talked about this before. So like that's a thread we could touch on.
Yeah.
The interesting pieces that I find are like, you can't charge your worth. You do have to charge what the market's willing to pay, right? Like you have to charge a number that you're providing a service, you're solving a problem, and like there's price flexibility in service-based businesses, all of them, right?
Mhm.
Like there's a it's flexible, right? There are copywriters who charge $50 an hour. There are copywriters who charge $1,000 an hour. There are
Mhm.
copywriters who charge commission, right? Like just as an example of one creative service-based business, one that I have had, and one of the titles I have owned in my life.
Mhm.
There's price flexibility. I can't charge what I'm worth. I can charge what I'm willing to charge for what I feel is fair for the experience and value I'm delivering. Some of it's quantifiable, some of it isn't,
Mhm.
right? That's true, right? Like as a coach, same thing. I can charge what's fair. I can charge like what I feel is fair. I can charge what the market's willing to pay, which like is question there's a question mark around that as well.
Mhm.
So when it comes to pricing, my personal the way that I the way that I teach students that I've worked with through programs of mine in terms of pricing is to like be realistic on like your capacity, and you have to move through pricing in a way that your system, like your actual physical nervous system, can allow for. Like you can't charge $10,000 if that's going to feels like a huge number for you. You're never going to be able to charge that. You have to like stretch yourself into being able to charge that, right?
Mhm.
Like to be right. Like so for example, I'm just going to use my own experience as a copywriter. Like I charged $97 for a sales page the first time I ever wrote one.
Mhm.
um that's what I charged. That's like was my first 5 sales pages. Like as I expanded and got more experience and grew, it became easy for me to charge $5,000, right? Today I'd probably charge more if I was going to do that work.
Mhm.
I haven't run a sales page in quite a while. Like that's not a service that I offer in the season. But if I were to do that, I would probably charge a lot more now. But if I had done that when I first started, I wouldn't have been able to sell because I would have felt like a fraud. I would have felt contracted around it. It just wouldn't, it has nothing to do with worth. I wouldn't have been able to receive it. And so
Mhm.
the way that I work with clients with pricing stuff is like, you have to be realistic about your capacity to receive. You have to be realistic about the market you're serving. You have to be realistic about like the value you're delivering and clarity on the problem that you're solving. What is it actually worth to someone to solve that problem for them?
Mhm.
And like these are all the factors that kind of have to be considered when you price something. Um,
Right.
so it's like less about your worth and more about like what can you truly receive right now without being like, oh my god, it's too much, oh my god. Like I actually can't. Or getting on a call and like your throat closes when you try to quote your price. You're like, it's gonna be this much money, and it's like everyone could, people can like coach you on charging your worth, but if your body can't
Mhm.
allow for that expression to come out clearly, then like
Yes.
it doesn't matter. You have to like state it confidently without having like it's just what it is. And if
Yes.
you don't have that neutral charge around it, then like it doesn't matter what's right or wrong, or what like any of those other practical questions almost don't matter.
Mhm.
So I walk through an intuitive process with clients usually around pricing, and it's like it's a pacing thing and a
Mhm.
timing thing and a what season are you in thing. Um, so
That
yeah,
is
it's
that's
flexible.
that is a whole different level of what I have been attuned into. When we talk about pricing our services and our products, it's about it doesn't even talk about the intuitive aspect of it. It doesn't talk about what you are able to receive and that neutrality around it. Um, Thank you for that.
Hmm.
Yes, yes. Do you are are you working with clients these days
Yeah.
or yeah?
Yeah, I am coaching. So I not ironically coach, I coach multi hyphenates, and
Mhm.
it is around like holding multiple identities and like landing in like their marketing, their sales, and their creative process, and kind of all of those pieces. And so I'm in an interesting spot where I don't have an identity as a coach that's like, I just do one thing. I'm like, I actually am a writing, marketing, and sales coach, and I do all of those things. And often I am servicing the service provider who also holds a creative identity.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Okay. I love that. Um, and I also want to make sure that people know about you hold a monthly free writers block.
Yeah,
Can you
it's
talk about that?
my writer's block party.
Yeah, okay.
So
um,
yeah, every month I throw a writer's block party. It's basically a 90-minute Zoom, and it's a format that I created back in 2020 based on like having led lots of writing retreats and having worked as a writer for a long time and like as a coach also for a long time. And so it's a format that I created that like is it's a little woo woo and a little practical, but it's a
mhm,
very productive like writing session, and we meet and we write together, and it's really fun.
mhm.
So yeah, I host those monthly, and they're community calls.
Okay. Well, with this, I'm going to send people to your website,
Thanks. Yeah.
uh, and I promised that this was going to be sort of a brief, targeted interview, and that's why I'm going to wrap it up right now while we're on a high note. And I am just kind of blown away by the way that you have come at this, which is intuitive and heartfelt, I should say wholehearted. And I wasn't expecting this. So I'm so happy that we had this time to talk together. I will be giving out the information about your website and your services and everything. And is there any bit of advice you want to give to writers, multi hyphenates, I should say,
Hmm.
that are sort of on the early stages of building their dream career?
Yeah.
It's kind of a big general question.
It is. I'm just feeling into it because I do have an answer, but I just want to feel into like what really wants to be expressed.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really committing to the lifestyle of it. I think it's honestly, it's not like my invitation is to let go of like, this is the outcome I want. This is the thing that's going to validate me. This is like the job that's going to make me worthy. This is like, it's really, like my invitation is to like settle in because
Mm-hmm.
it's a lifestyle choice, and like honoring the truth of your desire for the career that you dream of is
Mm-hmm.
like in a lot of ways the most important piece. So it's like the invitation is, Cheryl Strayed has this great quote that I always come back to, which is, you don't have a career, you have a life. Do
Mm-hmm.
the work, stay true blue. Like, and I think that that honestly is the biggest piece of advice, is like it is a holistic whole, like you're a whole being, and that one piece of your life does not make or break you. It does
Right.
not mean you're worthy or unworthy. It does not mean, it doesn't mean as much as it might feel like it does. um so yeah, just keep walking forward,
Mm-hmm.
and like allow it to be a lifestyle choice.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, Jamie Jensen, I want to thank you so, so much for giving us your time. And I will keep you posted on how everything is going to roll out with this. And I am so happy we had this time
Me
together.
too, Dawn. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you're doing this. I think it's a really important summit, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you guys.